Hi, my good people. Today I'm going to be talking about a little bit more in depth the best practices for accountability for preschool teachers and leaders. Okay, to kind of touch on the teacher portion first. First you have to be able to identify what is it that you need accountability on. So, do you need accountability in regards to ensuring you're completing your lesson plans? Do you need accountability in making sure that you're communicating with your parents on a consistent basis? Or do you need support with that accountability for something external, that can affect your classroom in any type of way? So, first and foremost, identifying what type of support you need from that accountability person. And secondly, finding someone to be able to hold you accountable. You don't just want anyone, right? You want someone who'd be willing to kind of check in with you here and there to see and make sure like you're sticking to what it is that you said you want to do until you kind of get the hang of things and you're like, yes, I got this. I'm confident. I don't need an accountability person anymore. You've kind of proven yourself to be pretty consistent. So identifying that as well. When we kind of want to sidetrack from an actual accountability person and maybe you say, hey, um, you're not a people person to a degree. I mean, if you work in preschool, you definitely should be. But you have some people who are like, I can hold myself accountable. I just need to kind of set some things into place. If that's you, I get it. Hey, there are things for that too. One of those being, how do you like to receive updates? How do you like to be reminded of things? If you are a person that likes to be reminded of things through an alarm, set alarms and put in notes of reminders to kind of hold your own self accountable. If you're a person who is more visual, right, then maybe sticky notes is your jam. So that could be sticky notes on your personal mirror at the home before you're leaving. If you're at school, in your classroom setting, that could be maybe on the inside of your cabinet if it's allowed. Sticky notes to kind of remind you to do X, Y, and Z before the week or maybe certain hours. So, secondly, sticky notes, or thirdly, setting alarms. Preferably alarms that do not go off while you're in the classroom environment because we want to stick to minimum standards. But yes, whatever works for you, flows for you, do what's best. Okay. I kind of want to go into depth when it comes to prioritizing your priorities and things that you need to be held accountable for. So, you first want to look at what is at the top of my list. What is something I'm truly struggling with that I need to be held accountable for, and kind of start from your most high priority to your least priority. I would say taking a pen and some paper, sitting down and jotting down all the things that you know you need to do on a consistent basis that's reoccurring, right? And kind of create a schedule for yourself. So if it's lesson planning, that may look like partnering with your management team to see like, hey, when can I have lesson planning time? Or hey, how can I use the best of my downtime in the classroom if you have a co-teacher, there are so many external avenues you can do to kind of set yourself up to plan time to do your lesson plans and activities and other things that affect your classroom. I'll give you an example. If you need to do assessment, say it's assessment time and you kind of have to go one by one to assess your child depending on how your school does it. A good tip that you could do depending on your schedule and if management of course says it's okay is at those low times where it's not peak times in the classroom where you guys are at a one teacher ratio or maybe you are two kids away from a one teacher ratio, taking those other friends that would put that teacher out of ratio with you, and that could be a 1-to-1 or a 2-to-1. Maybe going to see about a quiet place in the school where you can go to assess them, and then you're essentially just kind of swapping kids out back and forth. You're going back and forth. That way, you can have that solitude of time with that kid to really work on what it is they know and what it is they don't know, and creating a plan for what you can do to kind of further their success in the classroom with you. So that is something I personally did when I was a teacher in the classroom. I would set aside days that I knew, like, hey, I can stay a little later today. Of course, my management approved it, and then I would kind of sit in the hallway with kids on the floor and have what it is I want to assist them on, or what it is we needed to work on that I noticed in a larger group that they were struggling on more. Of course, this takes a lot of pre planning, right? Learning your peak times and your low times in your classrooms when kids are leaving or when kids are coming in. If you're an opening teacher, this is something you could do in the mornings when it is low. As those kids are coming in, those kids that you know are consistently early friends, taking time aside to sit down and assist them, taking time aside to be able to work with them more in that small group portion of things that you know they kind of can't catch when the entire class is there. So first and foremost, looking at your times and seeing where can you extend, to kind of give yourself more grace and that kid more grace and offer that personalized kind of care. So next, regarding, let's see, we talked about setting time aside. Um, Pre-planning, so lesson planning. If lesson planning is completely new to you and right now you feel like you are kind of just on a day-to-day basis, right? You kind of have to get in the flow of being able to be held accountable, because first and foremost you need to know what it is you need to be doing in pre-planning. So the first thing there would be identifying what type of lesson planning outline the school has kind of set out. So do y'all have certain days? And if you do have certain days, are there pre-made templates that you already kind of pull from to gather your information? Or is everything to where you kind of have to research and come up with items on your own to create? Whatever it may be, you just need to see how the facility that you are at kind of gives you the guideline to do lesson planning. All right. And once you identify that, then you can pre-focus your time when you do have quiet time to yourself. This could be at a nap time, right? This can be early morning time, and writing down like, okay, next week, I know we're talking about sea animals, and sea life. So I want to at least do an art activity, a math activity, and a science activity. Kind of jotting down your notes so that way you can pre-plan these activities and get an idea of what it is that you want to do. While therefore you might not have the entire week planned out, you at least have a basic activity each day that would stimulate the kids, and it would also entertain them and get them interactive. So first and foremost, seeing what type of template they have for lesson planning at your center. When you identify that, seeing what free time you have to be able to come up with said items for your lesson plan. And when you have that, then you can go in and look here and there in your downtime and say, hey, okay, now what things can I either create or what has someone else created that I can implement into my lesson plan? Teachers Pay Teachers is a great resource. There's another like group on Facebook that's pretty awesome too. A lot of like teacher clubs and directors and things like that. There are plenty of resources where you can gain some ideas to do in your classroom for your lesson plans from other people who have already thought it out and right have taken that time to make materials, and most times you may be paying like $3 or $4 for all the materials that you may need for it, if it's a digital file or other materials that may be store bought. Most times they're pretty cost effective. I rarely see any teachers make anything to where, you're having to go above and beyond and pay an arm and a leg for. And especially if you're at a center where your management team purchases the items for you, that's even better, right? If you can pre plan and give them a list of items that you need for supplies to do your lesson plans for the upcoming weeks, that's even better. That's another form of accountability because, right, they've purchased these items, so you have to do them, you have to get them out the way. Okay. This kind of wraps up my best practices for accountability for teachers. I kind of wanted to go more in depth because there's so many avenues that you can go with when it comes to talking about accountability for them and really trying to set something up um for yourself as a teacher to be able to succeed, because when you succeed, your children succeed. And if your children succeed, your classroom is thriving. If your classroom is thriving, you got happy parents and happy families. And ultimately, that is the goal. All right. Thanks so much for joining me. If you have any comments, any suggestions, please leave them down below.